Welcome. This is Let's Talk Hack, iOS Jailbreak, and it's all about watching the outbreak. If you don't know what that means, stay tuned, and James will tell us all about that. Speaking of James, he's our guest for tonight, and maybe just for introductions.
Hi, I'm James Chen, and I'm a security researcher, exploit developer.
Toby.
Hi, I'm Toby. I'm an Android freelancer and a regular at H4H.
Okay, and then we've got a mixer tonight, a new mixer. It's Guy. Guy, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Guy van den Berg, and I'm a freelancer, a software developer, and dabble in a little bit of hardware.
All right. Thanks, Guy. And then I haven't introduced myself. So what happened in 2011 August, a couple of guys got together and we started H4H, and I was one of those guys. So that's me. So in tonight's show, like I said, we're talking about iOS jailbreaking, bit of a behind-the-scenes look of it, not the usual content. And there's going to be a little bit of Locksport and then all the usuals. For instance, Hacker News, and we'll just dive right into that. So on the Hacker News front, so in the previous show, we talked about the Sumo Robot challenge. So that's happening on the 13th of April. The idea is to build your own bot. Go to H4H Sumo.co.za for more details on that. There's also a hackathon happening, actually 2 hackathons happening in April. So the first one is on the 20th of April up till the 21st, and that is the NASA hackathon. So it's all about space technology. NASA's going to give all sorts of information for us to play with, data to mine, etc., etc. And then on the 25th, I guess this is a preliminary date, there's the Hello Computer hackathon. And in that one, you can actually win up to $10,000 hard cash. It's hardware hacking, software hacking, just doing really interesting things. In the previous hackathon, they had a hamster in a cage, and that as the hamster moved around, you could see it twittering about its food, about its wheel, and how awesome that is. So fine. And then I think lastly in Hacker News, at H4H, we recently got a lathe and a milling machine. And we finally got this machine alive, and we'll soon have some courses on that. So go to the H4H website or the H4H mailing list. Stay tuned. Come for a course if you want to know all about turning metal, milling metal, and generally having fun. So I think that's as much as we want to have tonight for the Hacker News. So on to our main feature, which is called iOS Jailbreaking, Watching the Outbreak. And without much further ado, over to James, our specialist. James.
Hi. Today I'm talking about the iOS jailbreak from a different point of view, from a researcher or an exploit developer's point of view. So what we're going to go through, a general outline is probably look at some assembly, and I'll start explaining each process while the jailbreak's busy happening. Okay, so this is the initial analysis of the evasion jailbreak, current 1.5.4, I think, and it works from 6.1 to 6.0 to 6.1.2. As you can see, the interface is very elegant. It's much upgraded to the past compared to the past jailbreaks, where this is automatic and it detects everything by itself, where the previous jailbreaks might include 72 steps. This one single button. I'm busy loading the evasion jailbreak into IDA Pro, which is my preference out of all debuggers. The settings are normal. You don't need anything specific because it's simple. Okay, so we're just waiting here while IDA Pro is busy analyzing all the assembly and bytecode and just trying to find a start point.
You're disassembling the jailbreak tool, is that what you're doing? Okay.
I'm breaking the jailbreak tool down to assembly language. Then you can actually see what the software is actually doing, because everyone just loads it up and clicks jailbreak.
Okay. Excellent.
Now it's found the start point, which is not the correct start point. It's actually where the obfuscator software and the packers and protectors is fooling the software into fooling the debugger into thinking where the starting point is. I'm launching the debugger now.
So you mean to tell me they've obfuscated the code of the jailbreak tool?
Yes, because if you look at the statistics from the people viewing the adverts, they probably pulled in $250,000 US just from adverts, from everyone wanting to download the jailbreak.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so as you see through, I put a breakpoint on specific locations, and it showed the TLS callback protecting method, where they use the TLS callback to load extra libraries at runtime and to stop you from seeing all the different types of libraries that they're actually loading in, so you can't pinpoint specifically. So the memory is randomly loaded through the kernel, then the software itself starts unpacking and unprotecting the software, but then it starts detecting the debuggers and everything else. So it's really trying to stop you from analyzing the software. And then as you get there, it'll kick you out, and then it'll close down the debugger and tells you that you aren't able to access it. They've also got methods where you can also attach onto the process after it's unpacked itself. But they split threads, so they have another thread that monitors any debugger activity, and once it detects the debugger activity, it'll close the thread, the previous thread, and spawn a new thread. So it's
So
very...
they're just trying to make debugging really difficult.
Yeah, debugging and disassembling as difficult as it can. So as you see, I'm loading it into the free Ollie DBG, the open source. It's loading all the libraries.
So
and
this is a different debugger now.
Yeah, and I'm trying to attach to it instead of loading it from the debugger itself. And you'll check now that it'll detect the debugger either through the thread information or a debug bit that your computer always sets. So there is ways to get around that, and I have analyzed the jailbreak itself, but there's certain legal issues for displaying everything, how I got past that. So as you can see, it's loaded, and I'm highlighting certain... Yeah, so what happened there was I was highlighting the debugging call that they found, and they're using that method to close the thread and kill the process and spawn another child thread. And then from there, it just keeps doing it until you get tired of it.
Okay, so there's some skill involved then to move it past that.
Yeah.
Did you manage to get around that?
Yeah. So, like, a general idea of how to bypass protectors, you would run it command by command and find out where specifically the locations of these debugger calls and bits are set. And all you do is just set the 0 flags, or just jump past it, rewrite the assembler as it's going along, and then once you got to the software is totally unpacked and then you would dump the software, then all the security is passed and you're safe for now. Then you would just neuter the child spawning thread and calls the whole time, so that you can, or not the whole time, the method basically. It has a specific method that calls that. So you would just neuter that and then save it, and then you have a working jailbreak without any obfuscations, nothing.
So then you can actually debug it and see what it's doing.
You can debug it without doing that. It's just tedious to every time to set your certain bits and flags.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the general idea behind exploit development in the iOS environment. Personally, I have set 3 phases out. Phase 1, usually you find a userland exploit, which is like a Safari WebKit error, software, network connection, protocol error, something from outside in, your first step. Your phase 2 would be breaking the sandbox, because once your jailbreak works, you've got certain amount of privileges, but usually that process is held within a sandbox, and you want to find an exploit that can let you leap out of there or break out the sandbox. And then the third final step is you would create a permanent jailbroken environment for yourself, and obviously escalate to root privilege if you haven't done so already. And by making it permanent, you would turn off all security features such as KASLR, ASLR, DEP. Those are all security features, and cookies, where it's more hardware level, where they set certain randomizations of memory so that you can't do a buffer overflow or a cookie behind a certain important register, such as your LP register, where basically points to your next code execution. Yeah.
Sure.
So that cookie would be there. So you, as soon as you overflow it, they check that cookie before you run the next protocol, so that if it does not match up, there's an overflow or something happened, and then they shut down the process, crash.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but obviously you get special guys like GeoHot, which next slide. Sorry, previous slide. You get bootrom exploits, where this is the first lines of code that you launch that loads everything else, such as iBoot and so forth. GeoHot found in the previous generations of Jailbreak the Lime Rain exploit. Basically, why this is such a unique exploit is it's the first lines of code. So if you have control at that stage, anything else you load after that, you have full control of it, because that's running after and you spawning those code processes. So those are the most difficult to find, and that's where the unlocks happen. Well, most of the unlocks happen. You get full control of the device, so you have control of your Wi-Fi, cellular connections, Bluetooth, and your chipset connections, your chip ROMs. That's where you would find these boot ROM exploits. Okay, next one. Okay, evasion. Why evasion was such a unique exploit? They actually didn't use any memory corruption userland exploit, which is so unique because people check their code so well, and they have brute forcing machines that give the software large amounts of inputs to make sure that it's correct. So usually memory corruption occurs where the programmer has a logic error. But now this is a logic error but not a memory corruption. So so what evasion does is it creates when you connect your phone, you have access to AFC, you have access to the mobile backup system no matter what. And obviously on the phone, it's sandbox. You don't have no privileges, nothing. It's just to upload and download information to and from your computer. So what they did is they created a backup file. This backup file is engineered in a certain way so for it to be its payload. And that's its phase one, its point of entry. It created a symlink. So once it transfers files on, it has actually a symlink to a certain folder that they wanted access to. But obviously, the iOS guys were clever enough not to allow access. It will only have the privileges of what it had before. So that doesn't help, but it helps so that we can get our payloads onto the device. So you can think of this as, imagine a giant bus that can fit 20 people on it. But now we stick a picture that somehow magically makes the bus disappear, but it's a picture of a small smart car. So you're fooling the backup process to think that, oh, it's only a small backup file, but then you actually symlinking a symlink to a larger folder, and it just pulls across all the files in that folder. Okay.
So this is from your computer onto the device itself.
Yeah, so that Jailbreak app has this already loaded into memory, ready to go.
Okay.
So when you click Jailbreak, it'll start setting up everything, creating the folders, symlinking, and then getting ready to send across. Okay, so when you click Jailbreak in your first process there in phase one, you'll see it's busy gathering information about your computer and stuff, and your iOS devices. So it's setting up the backup file, the informations, your mobile plist, which is basically a list of all the applications on your device. So that's freely accessible through your iTunes and everything you install on there. But it adds something nasty in a sense. It creates a demo app. So it gives a basic framework of a application, and it starts listing preferences and features of this application. But obviously, it's sandboxed. In this header of this application, it's got a you know your text files. You usually, if you want to write a script, you usually say hash bang, slide,
like
burn.
interpreter, whatever
Yeah,
it is,
exactly.
like bin bash or
which one you want.
Python or
Right.
whatever it is. Yeah.
But they realized that there's a slight flaw. They can actually, instead of saying bash, they can give bash commands and remount a whole drive if it's got enough privileges. So they just wrote this all in the demo app's first few lines, and that doesn't get executed at the moment. That just so they can get the files across, and they've already got a payload script in, so they don't have to send shell code across.
Is this part of the jailbreak, or is
This is all part of setting up the jailbreak for execution. So you see, there's a lot of work that actually goes into it, and it takes a lot of time to figure out all these little tweaks and little mishaps that the people don't realize that.
So if I just understand that, so you've got the symlink pointing to a different folder.
Yeah.
And is it in this folder that you now have your demo app with the interesting...
Yeah, with the edited...
Okay. So there's now a payload and there's some things, all right? And then
the actual exploit comes around about now. It should be the next slide. Okay, you have what it uses for USB connections. It has this daemon called lockdown-d. So that monitors the connection from both sides of the computer, so to and from your device. Now there is an actual exploit in this lockdown-d which controls the starting and stopping of services. So they exploited that, and they're able to add this plist into the plist of your phone. So basically, in the beginning, phase one, it gets your plist, edits it, symlinks, and then now with this lockdown-d exploit, it sends all this information across, and then because of this exploit, it loads it into memory.
So it actually starts executing it on the device.
Yeah. Well, not executing it. It starts loading the illegal files onto the memory.
Oh, I see.
Into memory locations.
Okay.
This exploit only allows user mobile, which is what most applications and services run as. It's sandboxed with the mobile preferences and so forth. So this exploit doesn't really allow full code execution. Once this exploit occurs, it reboots your whole device so that everything is loaded into your plist that's on hand live at the moment. And
so just explain the plist quickly. So
okay.
What is it exactly?
It's a list of all the users' applications and what sandboxes and users can access and so forth. Because
would system apps also be part of the plist?
Yes, it would be.
So that's how they can put their own app into the plist and give it extra privileges as opposed.
No, but the problem is you have certain privileges that are set because code signing and so forth.
Okay.
So if it's not code signed, they can't get those
permissions.
But they've loaded their altered plist into memory. so into hard drive space somewhere.
So would it be correct to say a plist is almost like a registry in Windows?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Something like that. That type of an idea. So we were talking about this lockdown D exploit. What's unique is it creates. What they did is they created a symlink back to launch D, and because of this exploit, they gained full control of launch D with root privileges. So once they started running through that plist with root privileges, they with that line of mounting and remounting hard drive space, the kernel space, they remounted it in with full read and write access, where previously it was only read.
Yeah.
So guess what? We've got control of kernel space. But what if we restart the device? We lose everything. So this is where we come in with phase 3. Yeah, success. Phase 3. They use a time zone with that symlink. They symlink to the time zone process, or like daemon, right? And that daemon, they symlinked it again to the launch D, and that's how they got control. That symlink. So that time zone was only mobile, but lockdown D called launch D to launch something, because that's why you need the reboot, and it gave it root privileges and it mounted and remounted. If you understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
But why the time zone?
That's where they found. That's why they didn't need the memory corruption, because they found that if they linked it correctly with symlinks.
So it actually disables the time zone actual service and runs their service.
No,
as
it runs the actual time zone service, the correct one.
Yeah.
But there's a logic flaw
Okay.
that causes the launch D to through symlink get root privileges, and what they do is just do that the whole time, and they drill down in, low and low into the folder where they want to be. Basically, the device is rebooting, but now you need a exploit, which would be your kernel exploit. But we've got root privileges. We remounted it, full read and write access. We start transferring our files that we want. So the control registry files would be, it's already on there. So mobile plist would be loaded. Our mobile plist. ASLR would be switched off. Dep would be switched off, and so forth. Think of it as a bank hires a bunch of thieves, and they know they were thieves, and they know their job is to steal. So they hire a bunch of thieves into the bank, and then when the bank starts working or doing jobs, they start stealing money.
Sure.
So that's what they did. They replaced the files with what they wanted, and then they got persistent exploit.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay.
So after a while, they started stretching their reaches from plist to what applications can launch, adding your Linux shells onto there, and you get your full control, and it starts loading the payload or applications, CDR and everything else onto what they want. And because now it's persistent, every time you boot up your device, it's going to take a longer while, because it's now writing it and evading the code signing and so forth, but it still boots up, and you still can run your jailbroken phone.
So where does all this get written to? Is it to the protected memory, to the protected like system files, or
Protected system files, your kernel.
okay?
Because now we have full read and write on kernel space.
Yeah.
They just write and replace what they don't want and what they want there.
So after the first reboot, the next time you reboot, it doesn't need to reapply those patches, right?
Exactly, because it's
already
into
there.
the memory. That's
Okay.
why when updating, it would be a major problem. Where boot ROMs win is you don't need that, because you found an exploit in the boot ROM, and through that it's already written to your device, your firmware chip, and then your execution is continuous. Not even a firmware update can solve it. They need to bring in a new chip device.
Okay.
So the consequences. you just jailbroken your phone. Basically, you just hacked yourself. All the security features are turned off. If you install the shell, you can SSH or so forth into your device. And I'm sorry to say, but your default password that you can easily Google for any iOS device is Alpine.
All right.
So that's
so if someone jailbroke their iPhone and they connected to a Wi-Fi, we could just SSH into it with that Alpine password.
Okay. They picked up on people doing that, so they removed the SSH
Access
shell script.
by default. Okay.
Yeah, by default. So you have to install it personally.
Okay.
But think of it, if someone that wants to harm you in some way, they just repackage the jailbreak and basically weaponize the jailbreak. Maybe a drive-by download through a website or web page, and you wouldn't even know that they installed SSH on there, and your default password for root is Alpine. So it's you're just asking for problems.
Yeah.
So I mean, if I understand correctly, you could now download an app that's got some malicious content in it.
Yep.
And you've got no protection against that.
No protection
It
at
can
all.
do whatever it wants with your device.
Exactly.
And there's no way to detect that because you've
Yeah.
voluntarily
detection.
now given
Exactly.
up all your defenses.
Are you able to detect it once someone's broken in?
No.
They've got root access. They can change your kernel. You won't. Your rootkits are dangerous.
So as an app developer, would I be able to detect that I'm on a jailbroken device?
You should be able to code signing and so forth. I think Apple does have APIs to detect that. I don't know if it's in the public released APIs, but I think you'll be able to detect if it's a jailbroken phone.
Okay.
Because some jailbroken phones allow you to access more features on the phone. Like you can create as large of space for your app as you want, or you can access certain data that you couldn't before. So maybe just access contacts or your GPS location without authorization.
So, but I mean, that doesn't make sense because I mean, doesn't all these other apps that you've downloaded now still run in those sandbox environments or?
The initial apps, yes. But now you installed Cydia.
Yeah.
That when it installs applications, it's installing it under root.
Ah, okay.
But if you had a jailbroken device and you downloaded more apps from the iTunes store, would they still run under Sandbox? Would they still?
Yes,
be
they would
protected?
still, because you're installing and just adding to the P list of the location where it is, and because it's generic from the app iStore, it'll just add what iStore tells it to add.
Okay.
So right now, Apple doesn't have any detections from the iStore to detect, because I think that'll just cause problems for them.
Okay. So I mean, if you jailbreak your phone,
Yeah.
and you only use those apps that are on the iStore, I guess you pretty much
You
safe
asking-
still.
No,
No.
because you already opened up all your security features are already disabled, so someone else can just use the same exploit or a drive-by download. As I said, weaponize the jailbreak onto a browser, and you're browsing.
So this is now on your PC rather than on the phone, right?
No, on the phone.
On the phone.
On the phone.
Okay.
So you're busy browsing, send a web page your friend sent you, and you click a link. They've got full root access to your phone.
So the
they
browser.
can install
So the
any-
browser itself is running as root.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's got its own user profile.
Okay.
But with the jailbreak we're using, they can run as root. Basically, they just write a script. So when obviously they have to find a Safari or WebKit exploit, and once they found that, they can access everything else. So
Okay. So you're not protected.
yeah,
From
you don't have any buffer overflow protections, no protection, so forth. And if you don't change your root password, it's
So do you use a iOS device?
Yes, I use multiple iOS
And
devices.
is it jailbroken?
No. Yes. No, I'm kidding. Yes, it is jailbroken. I do it to test out the jailbreaks. But
Sure.
obviously, after a week or so, I would put it onto the latest beta.
So you went through the code, or at least you debugged through the jailbreak
Yeah.
to see what it's doing.
Yeah.
Did you find anything malicious that they were doing?
No, um, Pot2G and Planet Being and the guys, they were pretty nice in only doing what they were supposed to do, but they could have done something malicious and no one would notice, especially with so much obfuscation and
Yes.
hacking.
In fact,
You would
that's the question.
You would expect something dodgy to happen,
Yeah.
but they didn't. They were just trying to kind of protect their intellectual property,
Okay.
because exploit is what
Well-
they developed and they prided themselves on it.
Okay.
So,
Makes sense.
so this exploit that's now available, I assume that that's the one you described works on the sort of latest iOS devices.
No, the Apple team has patched it up. I think the latest security patch 6.1.3 is fully patched for the evasion jailbreak. They patched up, out of the 5 patches they patched, that they stated, 4 of them was for evasion. But I think they patched up 2 more security exploits. I need to go confirm that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so I mean, you obviously describing this particular way. Is this a typical
It's a general, as I tweeted this afternoon, Corlan is this famous bug hunting crew. They said knowledge is not an object, it is a flow. So it's similar concepts re-implemented, but not this, maybe not the same procedure. So you would find point of access, break sandbox, take control of your system. So
And then the boot ROMs you're
Yeah.
talking about.
yeah,
Does that work on any device?
that is specific to the firmware. So your A5 devices or your A4 devices, specifically to what chipsets they have. So
And so, the firmware doesn't change. Once a device is released, that's the firmware
Yeah.
it'll have forever.
yeah,
So if
exactly.
there's a boot ROM for that particular firmware, you could
Exactly.
just use that. How does that differ in terms of jailbreak to what you've described, the evasion?
Those are more persistent in the sense that when you have access to it, you have access to the whole device, and no matter what security patches Apple does, you can still jailbreak a device.
Okay.
Where evasion, as soon as they've patched up the flaws, the memory corruptions and symlinks issues, then they don't.
Okay.
Then it won't work anymore.
Okay.
I think we're just about out of time. Thanks, James. That was a really
It's pleasure.
interesting.
awesome.
I really enjoyed it. So we'll put up some links to your presentation and some links to those tools that you described.
Yeah.
And then, so if people want to learn more about this, I mean, where can they go? Is there any sites that you can recommend?
It's reverse engineering is a very broad field. YouTube helps a lot. Just type in IDA Pro or OllyDBG, which is a free version. Buy IDA Pro. It's expensive, but it's really good. They have graphs and things showing how code flow goes. But OllyDBG is free. Got tons of plugins. You can also get Immunity Debugger from the Immunity Sec guys, David Tal and them. So those are all options. But you just type in OllyDBG and what you're looking for, fire it off in Google, and you should get a decent result.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks, James. Thanks again for the talk. So now just wrapping up the show, we've got 2 more things to look at. Toby's going to give us a quick talk about the Take a Hack, Leave a Hack. As you know, there's this box full of really interesting goodies to hack here at H4H. And Toby's picked something randomly from that box to quickly take us through. Toby, go for it.
Okay, so this week I picked out this card, which is a PCMCIA wireless LAN card. So this was built for old laptops that had these slots that this would slot into. It's called PCMCIA, and what's nice about PCMCIA is that it's really easy to interface to. So you'll see a whole bunch of pins that it connects to. But if you look up on Google the pinout for PCMCIA, you'll realize that they're basically just data pins and address pins. So there's a lot of data pins and a lot of address pins. And essentially you can connect this to a microcontroller or to a Raspberry Pi, for example, which I thought would be quite a nice hack, is to be able to get a Raspberry Pi to talk to a PCMCIA card, because then you could have a wireless LAN card. There's lots of different types of cards. So you get hard drives that come in this form factor. In fact, one of the nice things is that it's very similar to the IDE interface of old hard drives before SATA came along. And IDE also works the same way. So you basically push out an address on the address bus. You have a chip enable and a write enable line and an output enable line. So you just toggle those lines, you get the data back out, and so you can basically read a hard drive, you can talk to wireless PCIe cards, and so this would be quite a cool hack if someone could get this to talk to either a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino or something like that. Might have to be a 32-bit Arduino because there's quite a lot of data pins and quite a lot of addresses, but nothing that a latch couldn't get around. So this might be cool for a nice hack.
Excellent. Thanks, Toby. So now the final segment, and we started it last week and we're continuing in that vein, is Locksport Leaderboard. So the whole idea is that our guests get a chance to lockpick. We've got 2 locks. The one is easy, the one is a little bit more hard. And basically the idea is see how far you get, how many of these locks you can pick. We'll basically just be watching you while you're doing it.
Cheating.
And,
No cheating.
Cheering him along.
Cheering you along.
All right, so he's got a minute, and this is the easy lock.
Okay.
Actually, no, yeah, this is the easy lock. Is this the easy lock or is it the hard lock?
I think that's a hard lock.
Okay, this is a hard lock. So I'm going to start him off with the easy lock. So the easy lock, he's got a minute, and hopefully he can get through both locks. And if he can, then he'll be on the top of the leaderboard. So, James, take it away. Who's got the timer, by the way?
Whoa, got it.
Ah, excellent.
Okay, well done.
I think I broke it though. I don't think it opened by itself because I was just jamming it in there.
No, that is the general trick with this one.
Okay.
What was the time? But I think you did well there. 55 seconds, right? For the
Okay,
for the first
so the previous best was Philip, 0 tilt. Last month did 1 lock in 58 seconds. You did 1 lock in 55 seconds. Moving you to the top of the leaderboard. Well done.
Woohoo! Well done, James. You're the leader.
All right. Well done. Okay, and I think that's pretty much the end of the show. Maybe just finally, how to get hold of us. You can get me at schalk.co.za. Toby?
Okay, I'm at tobyk.name, N-A-M-E. James?
You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn or Gmail. Twitter, James B, letter B, Chen, or Gmail, Bond, B-O-N-D, CHEN, JAMES @gmail.com.
Okay, so we'll put those links definitely up on the webcast, so check it out. And I think that's the end of the show.
That's a wrap.
This one's
Yeah,
a
it's a
hard
wrap.
one.
All right, thanks. Well done, James. That was
Thanks.
awesome.
This one's definitely the hard one. The other one, you fiddle around.
But you remember I got this in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Ooh, there I got it.
Ah, you
Damn
got
it.
it.